Yeah, the weather is peculiar. We was it yesterday in Perth Hills? Um, uh, they had a 10-minute hectic storm. Okay,
Mm.
10 minutes that ripped out trees, masses of rain, and had sort of quick flooding and then gone.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's strange, isn't it? It's exactly the sort of weather that's here. You
Really.
know, you get these really intense, short, sharp storms which just dump incredible amounts of water and have hail and wind and
Yeah.
all sorts of things, and then as quick as they come, they go.
Yeah, it's most peculiar. You know, it didn't affect us where I'm living at the moment, but uh, yeah, you talk about humid. Um, I'm glad we don't have humidity. Our air is dry. Okay,
Yeah.
very, very dry, and I mean we haven't seen rain here for, shall I say, months now.
Well, I
And
reckon in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks that we would have had about probably close to 500 mils of rain.
wow.
Mm. Yeah, just torrents of it. So.
But aren't you scheduled on the East Coast to have rain in summer, not in winter?
Yeah, well, it's sort of like the subtropics, so it tends to be a bit like a sort of a
Okay.
bit like a monsoon almost, So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no fun though. The ground is absolutely sodden, so I guess if we continue to have these sort of storms, then flooding is definitely on the card. I would have thought. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you personally, is your house in the hollows or on the hills?
No, so it's fairly flat here, but the trouble is that when you get rain as heavy as it tends to be, like lately, the drains just can't cope.
Yeah.
So it just comes cascading off the roof, and the drains have no hope of trying to get the water away, so it just backs up, really quickly. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is, though. There's not much you can do about it, except
Absolutely not, except talk about it.
talk about it and just try and remove any obstacles that's in the garden or whatever. But
Yeah.
with the heat and the rain, like the grass is just growing, like you can virtually see it growing. I reckon like within a week, like the grass would grow probably about 2 inches.
Goodness me.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
insane.
I've actually taken my lawn out because it just always dies in summer. No matter how you water it,
Yeah,
it just I don't know what grass is indigenous to this area, but it's not the common or garden grass that I'm aware of, and I've bought and put in over the last few years. So now we just keep a garden going without a lawn.
yeah. That's probably not a bad idea because I think the lawns need a lot of water, don't they, to survive?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, clearly, and then they don't survive.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So
but
what do
over
you?
the 5 years, from my experience now in Australia, um, I know what grows in my garden in summer now and what doesn't grow in my garden.
Yeah,
So uh, this particular summer, even though it has been as hot as it has been, um, the things have survived with watering now.
okay.
So yeah.
Mm. Mm. So what have you been up to? Anything exciting at all? Or?
Yeah, I listened. I actually asked you if you wanted to listen to, but maybe you don't know what it is. Um, I listened to an interview, and I think it probably, I'm guessing now, but probably 2 hours long, okay, with a Satguru.
Oh, okay. Gee whiz, that's a long interview. Yeah.
It's a hell of a long interview, and it
Mm.
done by a cosmologist, okay.
Mm.
Um, and so it was just so interesting.
Oh, okay.
And interesting for me. Obviously, it's I don't know whether it'd be interesting to you, but I would guess it was. That's why I said on Telegram, should I send you the link? Because I don't want to just send the link. And in fact, I don't know if I did actually send it or not. But anyway,
Yeah.
I suggest that one evening when you have got the time to, or what I did, I actually took it over 2 sessions. Okay.
Yeah.
And
so what was it about?
Well, it's about spirituality. Okay. I think the sign on my background said science and spirituality. They had a big sign up on a sort of board between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they never showed the audience, but you heard laughter when there were jokes. Okay, so
yeah,
it must have been an audience. It must have been a live interview somewhere.
Yeah,
and maybe it even told me, but I never read any of the small print. And so yeah, and it's so interesting for me because Moya talks about Logos as being the new spiritual science.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and always has, and it's so interesting because Sadhguru was saying so many things that were linked with what Moya has said in the past. Okay. Even down to some really minute detail, like for example, the Wheel of 84.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? Or?
No, not specifically. No.
Okay. What it is from the beginning of the physical dimension to the end of the physical dimension. We as humans are on a wheel of incarnation or reincarnation 8,400,000 times. Okay, that's where the 84 comes in. Okay, and it was interesting because it was only right at the end of the talk, and I really wanted him to say more from his perspective. What the 84? He just called it the 84. Okay, yeah. And the 84 dimensions, I think it was that he then went into 112 dimensions, then down to the 4 important dimensions and how you incarnate into these different dimensions. And yeah, it was just, and sorry, I'm rattling on here, but the other interesting thing is and it sort of links up. It links up with your and my previous discussions in the last couple of weeks, and that is, we talk about consciousness and the mind and the subconscious and all the rest of it. Okay, and he's got such a way about him, Sadhguru. He says things like the conscious mind is a liar. It lies and it lies and it lies. That's what it does. It lies. Okay? And misrepresents reality and everything to the individual. And it's just you've got to move away from believing your conscious mind.
Yeah.
And I found that so fascinating. And he repeated it a number of times during the interview too. That's all lies. That's your mind. That's science playing the fool. Okay. You're using your mind, and he gives examples of how science uses the mind to, try and discover how the universe was made. Okay.
Yeah.
And says when you don't know, you just lie.
Yeah, you make it up. Yeah.
You make it up. That's what it is. That he's got his way of saying things. So, And you know, because he says it with a tongue in cheek and a big smile on his face, you know, you can't help but enjoy the conversation. And of course, the cosmologist is a lot younger than Sadhguru, and he was trying to get his head around what Sadhguru was saying. Okay. And sometimes he would say, "Oh, you mean this, that, and that," and Sadhguru would say, "No, I didn't. No, that's your mind telling lies."
Yeah.
So yes, watch it, Don. I think. Did I send the link to you or not?
I don't think you did. I can't
Okay.
recall seeing it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll find it and send it on to you.
Was this guy a like an American physicist, wasn't he, or?
Yeah, he's a scientist, and in what field comes before cosmology? I just can't think of this. That is, but a cosmologist moves on and believes in things that can't be seen, where his colleagues will only believe what they can see.
Yeah.
So he's just one step further away, yeah. It's really interesting what Sadhguru says. What is not reality?
Yeah. He often talks about seeing things as they really are, doesn't he? You know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Moya does too. I'm sure he would. You know. So.
Yeah. You know, they are far apart in the way they communicate. Sadhguru communicates far more, what shall we say, entertainingly. Okay.
Yeah, more of a conversationalist, isn't he?
He's a conversationalist. He's a conversationalist, and Moya is he just sort of, he will talk about interesting things, but he'll talk factually and talk about that is and what isn't, and he doesn't talk about the type of things like is in this interview with Sadhguru. It's just not Moya's nature. Okay.
But he's becoming a bit more communicative, though, isn't he? Well, from what I can see, you know, that he seems to be a bit more active.
Yeah, he is. But it's just really letting people know, or letting Logos know, actually, because it doesn't go public. You're not allowed to go public with anything he says. You can't put it on social media or anything like that. So, but he's letting Logos know that you know, that, as I said last time, that the previous ages now is not any remnants left. The crossover has happened over the last, whatever it is, 20 or 30 years, and now comes the shit. Okay. Now comes the wars that he has told us about, and there's going to be basically, the people who are conquered are going to be slaves. Okay. But then after that time, which obviously is way, way, way after our lifetime, there will be 100 years of peace. Okay. But now it's the start of breaking everything down and somebody from the East taking control.
From the East.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing also, Sue noticed it. I mean, just on a simple TV program like The Project on 7. I don't know if you ever watch it, but it like catches up on all what's going on, and they freely use the word. What's another word for black hats?
Well, like Illuminati type thing. Or?
Illuminati, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. So they freely use the word. And the one woman there who said, you know, I support them. I support them, yes. And they talk about the Illuminati, and the other three laugh at her. And, you know, like she doesn't know what she's doing and things. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And then, you know, a movie has just come onto 7, having come off the cinemas, which we watched last night because I was intrigued to see what it was all about. And that's how the Illuminati penetrated the Catholic Church, and how it was an inside connection and story, and it was like a revenge for what the Catholic Church had done to the Illuminati a few hundred years ago. And
they have long memories, don't they?
Yeah, but it is only a movie, you know. But
oh yeah, but just
the fact that it's that people are talking about the Illuminati, you know, freely and easily. You know, I just mentioned one place, but you know, we just in interviews too, we'll hear it. You know, especially me talking about Trump and Biden, and you know, this word comes up, Illuminati. You know. Whereas before, you know, when I was talking about it, I don't know, decades ago, you know, it was a no-go subject. You know,
yeah, no,
you know, you didn't want to make an absolute fool of yourself. You didn't mention anything because, you know, how stupid can you be? You know, and so times have changed, and just so interesting the era that we have grown through. Anyway.
No, but it is a strange thing, isn't it? You know, like the ultra wealthy are quite unashamed about what they do, aren't they? Quite unashamed.
Yes,
yeah.
I agree. And more and more so just recently. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there almost seems to be this sort of arrogance underpinning it. You know, like, well, this is our right. You know, like we're the elite, and this is our place. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. And they certainly run by certain rules. Okay, it's not like it's you know, they have to be make people aware and must be in their face all the time, in the public's face. So that's got symbols all over the place. You know, on the biggest buildings in New York and in the main squares, there are these Illuminati symbols. And yeah, even on banknotes and things like that. So it's.
So what's your take on what's going on in the US? Do you reckon that there'll be another big change over there?
Yeah, you know, it was a sin that Trump, you know, never wasn't in office the last 4 years. It really was a hell of a go. So yeah, Trump will get back, and he'll change back a lot of things that Biden has picked through. But I think there's still something I sense when I think about it. There's still something strange going to happen while Biden's in office. Okay, um, not I'm not sure what. Whether he's going to be like the Danish queen and abdicate, I don't know. But or whether he's going to, because the Illuminati must have war. Okay, it's absolutely essential, and
it's probably where they make most of their money.
oh, they do. They do, and supporting both sides. Okay, supporting both sides. It's a war that make the money, but also to create pain and suffering, and that pain in the atmosphere is what's needed for them. Okay, and unlike I was listening to an interview by Musk was given the interview. In fact, I've listened to two. One was just talking to his staff about what the company as a whole has done. But the other interview was where Musk doesn't understand. He doesn't use the word Illuminati or anything like that. He doesn't understand. He said the Earth can be saved if it wasn't for he calls them the destructive forces. And he said there's plenty of land to double the population. Okay? Not that we've got scarcity of land. Of course, the Illuminati are saying, we need to reduce the population by 75% to survive. Okay, it's just trying to justify their wars, and so he was careful the way he worded his, but I interpreted what he was saying was, we've got to get rid of this threat that is mentally affecting everybody on planet Earth. And sure, he wants another civilization on Mars. And I'm busy reading a book right now on people who don't believe that is even possible. Okay, and they give us the book on what it's about. But Musk seems to think that the technology is advancing at such a pace that it is possible.
Yeah, well, he seems to have some sort of recipe there for, technological breakthroughs that few other people seem to have ever had, like in terms of the amount and the pace of change, doesn't it? Like he just seems to have, like a new rocket will be there within months, rather than years, sort of thing, So
yeah, it's absolutely amazing, and I think once he's got a base on the moon, he'll be able to launch very quickly and easily to Mars, and
is that really the race at the moment? Is it back to the moon? Is it?
Yeah, whether it's the moon or whether it's a new space station, the International Space Station is going to be gone in about 5 or 6 years. Okay, it's just too old. And the orbiter that's a space station that's going around the moon at the moment is the latest one. But the Chinese have also got one, and they're building on their space station quite significantly. And they've got a lot of people also doing all sorts of things there. So I think a lot of launching to Mars would be done from either on the moon's surface or from a space station. Okay. You don't need the power that you've got to use to get out of our gravity here from Earth. And so you need an enormous amount of power. Then you've got to refuel basically before you head to Mars again.
Yeah.
So there are those places. The refueling is already structured. It's there. Okay. I was reading about some of it this morning, and some of the refueling stations in space are waiting. Okay. So yeah, but I'm also convinced that NASA's been on Mars for what, 20 years, 1976 or somewhere around there, and so have a couple of other countries. But I'm convinced that the Chinese rover and the NASA's rover, they're not telling us the truth of what they've discovered. Okay. They just leak a certain amount, or not leak. They make a public announcement about this, and they show some photographs and so on. And there's just more to this than meets the eye.
And even the moon, I would imagine. But
yeah, the moon's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting once people land there and start working there.
Well, probably living there, I guess, won't they?
Yeah, they will be living there, definitely. And they've got all the technology to 3D print the domes that are going to go on the moon and so on. And the moon is a lot easier to colonize than Mars is, okay? Because of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is better on the moon than it is on Mars, okay? But there's still something mysterious about the moon, and so we'll see whether it's actually solid or whether it's hollow. That's the first thing, okay? If it's hollow,
well, even the size of it is relatively unique, isn't it? It's in comparison to the size of the Earth, and you look at that sort of ratio elsewhere, and you just don't really see it, do you? So.
Yeah, that's another factor, and the fact that you only ever see one side of the moon.
Yeah, there's only ever one side facing the Earth at any time, isn't there?
The way, if you look at the other moons, around Mars and Venus and so on, and throughout the galaxy, they sort of turn on their own. So you see all sides of them from the planets. So that's also mysterious. But I think we're about to be told. I'm sure there's.
You think there's some big announcements imminent, do you?
Yeah, 2024, definitely during 2024. We're going to, because there are a lot of rovers and things on the moon, from a number of different countries. Okay. And some are working with NASA, and others are not. Okay. So we'll see what transpires. But I like to think about it. I enjoy that sort of, read something and then allow myself to just imagine what my thoughts are, and perhaps even asking or pretending to ask some aspect of myself, what is the truth? And then I listen to myself talking to myself, and I say, aha, I thought so.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, isn't it? Like even with some of the study that I've been doing, which is a completely different context, but the way they characterize it is like there's the forces that are for creation and bringing order out of chaos.
Yeah.
And then there are the forces that are against creation and wanting to dismantle order and reinstate chaos. So, and it's pretty simple, in that sense, so.
Satanic forces.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, one of the, like analogies is always, that, bringing light, is a creative process, but reinstituting darkness is a destructive process, so.
But it's two sides. Is it two sides of the same coin? They're both meant to be there to counteract each other. So,
well, it's hard to know. I mean, because like you get these you get these arguments that go about, well, why does God allow it? But my sense is, and it's still very much work in progress for me, but my sense is it sort of comes down to the fact that, the notion that there's a sense that, like people aren't evil, but people do evil things. So it's an interesting nuance, but it's, and I sort of like think about that in a pragmatic sense, and I sort of think, oh well, if you think in terms of World War II, like, how did Hitler marshal, millions of people to go out and basically commit genocide? Like, how do you do that? So, it's a hard thing well, certainly for me anyway, to imagine how that actually, how someone woke up one day and said, I've got this idea. I think we might create death factories. Like, it's sort of intriguing to me in some ways, just to, and some of the stories, and I think that's one of the challenges even in the age in which we live, is you can hear something and you'd sort of say to yourself, oh, that can't possibly be true. Like, that cannot possibly be the case. And you just tend to sort of dismiss it. But it actually is true. Because it just seems that incredible that you sort of say, well, how could that possibly be the case? So, but I guess it comes back to like your opening comments, where, that our consciousness is not there to promote the truth, probably. So.
You said an interesting comment, and that is, humans aren't evil. Okay, they just do evil things. Okay, so are you disassociating yourself from the things that you do? Is that your excuse?
Oh no, not at all. No, I mean,
we are evil. Okay,
well, the way I sort of
behind what we do.
The way I sort of characterize it, if you use like the word sin, like if I do something that is sinful, the way that I characterize it now is that it creates an obstacle between me and God. That's what it does. It just creates an obstacle. And the removal of that obstacle, there's a solution for that. But in terms of what it is, and that tends to sort of take some of the emotion out of it a bit too, is to, in one sense, and then, sorry, in one sense, it's the issue of, and maybe it's an oversimplification, but it's the issue of, is this, taking me towards a creative spirit, or is it taking me away from the creative spirit, so. And that sort of disarms some of that emotional stuff about, it's evil, it's dark, it's black, and all that sort of stuff. It just tries to focus on, seeing it for what it is. But I don't know. But that could be misguided too, and I'll be the first one to say that I could be misguided on that. So. Because I don't know. I mean, I have a sense of how I feel when I do certain things. If I do something that I feel is creative, then I feel quite energized by that. But if I do something which is against the creation, then I find that to be quite, sense of sort of loss of energy and weakness and, you know, illness and apathy and, you know, that sort of energy, you know, so. Just a different way of looking at it, I guess. So, because for me, like, I mean, with some of the study I've been doing, you look at, well, I've looked at the language that they often use, and they talk about things like dragons and snakes and things like that as being an imagery or a representation of something that's against creation. You know, that, like, you know, the dragons, you know, even in the Garden of Eden, you know, the serpent, you know, has come from a place that is against, you know, opposes, you know, creative communion with God. You know, and therefore, like in terms of the Garden of Eden story, you know, used deception, you know, to you know, deceive the woman in terms of, you know, eating of the tree of good and bad. And that sort of raised the question for me is, well, didn't God want us to know the difference between good and bad, or, you know, have the ability to discern? And I think absolutely he did, because he wants us to rule. And any sort of leadership or ruling sort of capacity requires the ability to be able to discern, you know, this is the right thing to do and that's the wrong thing to do and that sort of thing. I think the main nuance of difference in my mind is I sense that what God is saying is that if you're in communion with God, you know, in the language that you and I have used in terms of, you know, the soul and how active the soul is within the being, if that is active and positive and so on, then in many respects you're taking your guidance, you know, from other dimensions. Whereas if you, which I think is what the, you know, the act of eating from the tree of good and evil is basically saying, no, I don't need you, God. I can do this on my own, which is, to use, you know, the words you were using at the opening, it's in effect consciousness saying, no, I know what to do. I don't need you. You know, so in that sense, it sort of opens up, you know, for me anyway, a different sort of panorama. And that sort of, again, in an experiential sense, sort of says, like, I used to struggle with the idea of, well, like, you know, like, we'll just have faith, you know, and my consciousness would say, faith in what? You know, and then over time I've sort of think, oh, you have faith in God, which basically means putting your trust in God, having a relationship with God, you know, doing things which cultivate, you know, the way that your soul operates within your physicality, you know, those sorts of things. Whereas your consciousness always saying, no, don't worry about that. No, that's bullshit. Don't worry about that. You don't need that. You know, you're a smart person. You can work it out. And of course we can't.
Yeah, have faith in God, okay? Believe in God, trust in God. It could be a cop-out, okay? Because it
largely is.
It insinuates that God is separate from you.
And that's right, largely is. In many religions, it's an absolute cop-out.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about religions. I'm thinking about you and I, okay? You know, what is it? You know, we here now on the wheel of 84 with reincarnation, with cause and effect and karma that carries on. yeah, so we think we can do good, and so we get some good karma. But we're still here and now. Okay, we still we cannot change our existence.
Mm.
Okay? We cannot. Okay, there's only the here and now and what it brings. And no matter who you believe in, who you love, is irrelevant. Okay, it's not going to change who you are. Okay?
Now, what changes who you are is what you actually do.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's not what you believe in, because that's all lies.
Yeah, and I think, like one of the things that struck me, to use some of Sadhguru's language, he often used to say is, if you don't know, then you don't know. And then you will probably seek to know and understand. He says, but for some, and he normally just pointed to a lot of organised religions, he said, if you say, I believe in this, he said, well, maybe you've just come to a conclusion and now you're looking for evidence to support what you believe.
Yeah.
And so if you come across something which is not supporting your belief, then you just discard it rather than see it for what it is.
Like science and spirituality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's why I think you'll enjoy the interview.
Yeah. Was it a fairly recent one or was it an older one?
I didn't look at the date. I suspect,
I've got a feeling I might have already seen it, if it's the one I'm thinking of, but I could be wrong.
I really don't know. Okay, I can't say I looked at, but I just assumed, it was right for me whenever I saw it.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that's current. It's current for me. It was what I meant to be listening to. It came to me without any effort, and so I have no idea how old it is, but I suspect it's quite new. But have a look. I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
No, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And you're keeping well?
Yeah.
Been walking?
Yeah, still walking regularly, and eating healthily, keeping myself mentally occupied, as you can probably hear from this meeting, and so each day is quite an exciting day.
So you've got off the medical industry bandwagon a bit in terms of having to go and see doctors and hospitals and stuff like that, or you still got that stuff scheduled?
I haven't, made up my mind finally on that, because the next time I've got to see him, I think it's probably the middle of this year. So
you're not having to go there like weekly or fortnightly or monthly or anything like that at the moment?
No.
Well, that's a good thing.
No, and I've the pills that he gave me, or the hospital gave me originally, that the GP carried on with, like the blood thinning, I've weaned myself off, and I eat an alternative that focuses on that. And as for the cholesterol, which was high, and they gave me cholesterol tablets, they said I must take for the rest of my life. I'm off those altogether. And I'm just watching that I don't eat too high food that has saturated fats. That's the biggest partner for human beings.
Because my understanding is psyllium husk is very good for managing cholesterol, isn't it?
What is?
Psyllium husk.
Oh yeah. I use that in our soups and baking and so on. But yeah, you've got to be careful. I've discovered that you mustn't go out trying to. Cholesterol is good for you. Okay, that's the bottom line. Okay, your body makes it, it manufactures it, it needs it. Okay, and what you can supplement it, but your body will make it. Just give it the raw materials that it needs. Okay.
Yeah.
And, so it's somehow cholesterol has got out of hand because of the unhealthy oils that we cook with, or some of us now, or certainly the McDonald's and Hungry Jacks and things. They, cooking with vegetable oil, which is very unhealthy, and other oils as well, hydrogenated oils. So avoid those, and Woolworths pre-cooked foods and things like that. You just got to make sure how they've been cooked or haven't been cooked, and so on. And you find that out by the saturated fat content on the label. Okay, so then that's fine. You actually don't have to worry about cholesterol anymore after you. That's a habit. That becomes a habit, and that's fine.
So you've had to learn a whole lot of new skills about understanding the impact of different foods and how foods are cooked and what they've been cooked in and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so you've become quite aware, haven't you, of what's compatible with your body, really, haven't you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I first see what the natural sciences have to say, and then I test them out of my body, and I see. Then I will go like I have no problems with going for blood tests, and I ask for all sorts of things. I want to know about this, that, and the other thing as well, and because those are telltale signs. If your body's high in calcium or very high in iron, whatever it is.
So would you describe it, if it is high or low in something that's just out of balance? Is that essentially where you land on it, or is it a bit more to it than that?
Yeah, it's interesting. If something, I mean, the last time I had blood tests was a couple of months ago. I told you about it, and everything was absolutely okay for me. Everything was balanced, was fine. Things that had been incredibly high were now back to normal, and but I've just got to get out of my head, which is not easy because you tell yourself lies all the time. So I've got I tell myself that I'm diabetic because my blood sugars are generally high than what science says they ought to be. And I've battled with that for a long time, and now I'm quite happy that my normal blood sugar level is acceptable to me, okay? And may not be acceptable to the pharmaceutical world, okay? But it's acceptable to me. Because if I keep my blood sugar at a certain level, then I don't have the symptoms that you have when you have got diabetes.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So body tells you. So.
And would I be accurate in saying that even when your body is healing or recovering from something, you might need it to be higher than average or normal or whatever as part of the healing process, potentially? I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I don't think I know either.
Because I was just wondering whether it's a static thing or whether it's something that does have peaks and troughs based on whatever else is going on in your body at the time. So.
Yeah. But you see, everything turns to glucose. All your anything that's carbs, and a vegetable is a carb, okay, and so on. But everything turns to glucose except protein and fats, okay. So Now, the big thing is, how you eat it, when you eat it, and what you eat it with, are relative to how the body is going to utilize it.
Yeah.
Or not utilize it. Okay, so that sort of knowledge I have now. Okay, yeah, and also, if you're feeling not well, I know how to help my digestive system assimilate things. Okay, which would perhaps otherwise have difficulty in doing for whatever reasons. It could be the moon cycle. It could be it could be a lot of things. And so
yeah, it could be the weather, couldn't it? I mean, like, as low pressure systems come over or high pressure systems come over, we're not remote from it. We're part of it, aren't we? So.
Yeah, definitely. And also, you mentioned humidity before, and yeah, as I said, we've got really, really dry air, and it's so dry that I can wash up the dishes and just put them on on the sink on top of each other, and within an hour they're dry. Okay. And they're not on a rack or something. Just put them on the sideboard, on the sink. Yeah. So, and my body hasn't been exposed to that sort of dry air before in 74 years. Okay. Well, I've been here 5 years now, so the last 70 years. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then when you go to Bali, there you get humidity. Okay?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like that.
and I can't handle that humidity.
It's back in the tropics, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
Closer to the equator, I guess, isn't it? So.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, that might be a good place to leave it for the day, do you think?
Yeah. Well, anyway, nice chatting to you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I missed you last week.
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy week somehow. I don't know why, but it was. But...
Yeah. Okay.
Very good. Okay. Well, I look forward to talking to you next week.
God be with you till we meet again.
Well, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Okay then. See you now.
Bye.